Hi, welcome to Studio ADI. Thanks for watching. I'm Alec Gillis.
And I'm Tom Woodruff,
We are
Jr.
we are Amalgamated Dynamics Incorporated. We do creature effects and special makeups for those of you who don't know. And today we would like to talk to you about why practical animatronics and makeup effects sometimes go digital, why they get replaced or heavily augmented with digital. Who makes that decision? How does that decision come about? And how it affects you, the viewer.
Well, this is interesting because we were going to do another, just pick a bunch of emails and respond to them, but I think Alec pulled this one out, which is really it sort of boils it all down into one note. From Robbie Carell, it says, it absolutely boggles my mind why on earth the studio and idiot director, if you can even call someone who makes such absurd decisions as he did, of The Thing, chose to not use these great pieces of art and went for that bubblegum video game CGI crap in the movie I saw in theaters. So I think it's you hit on a couple of different things that it would be nice to take just a couple of minutes and explain so everybody understands. So that this little community we've created here, this YouTube channel, isn't just about a bunch of people unilaterally casting aside all CGI and everybody involved with it is stupid and idiotic and kind of get everybody on the same track.
So there's a couple of points, as Tom said, that are brought up, and that is in reference to the Thing 2011. That creature is the pilot creature behind us is a creature that we built that was replaced by a digital creature. So this movie has kind of become the one for us that most represents this phenomena that happens where you do what you think is great work and then it gets replaced by CGI. And a lot of fans, as you know, subscribers to our channel are well aware of the story of how that got replaced. So we're kind of addressing folks that may not know. But basically in 2011 we did the effects for the movie The Thing 2011, prequel to John Carpenter's Thing. And by the time it was released, most of our work had been augmented digitally or totally replaced. So that's kind of what we want to address in this and how that happened. We don't have necessarily a full picture of what happened on The Thing 2011, but we'll tell you what happened on that film and what has happened on other films where the digital encroachment gets to a point where the animatronics guy or makeup guy's work is completely gone.
And I think one thing you have to keep in mind, keep remembering, is that the goal of anybody making a picture, well, not of anybody, the goal of the people that allow a picture to be made are the people who are producing, the people who are bringing the money to make a movie. Their goal is to make a good movie and to make a huge profit, or to make a good profit, because without a profit there's not going to be another movie, and then why do it, right? It's the way it works. So if you keep in mind that nobody is trying to push one approach over the other. Nobody has an agenda to push practical effects or to bury practical effects under CGI. It's basically decisions that are made more and more today out of the realm of our knowledge. I mean, literally, the situation with The Thing was that we didn't see the extent of what was being replaced until we went to a screening 3 days before the movie opened. So if you in a way, there's no real bad guys to this thing. It's just the decision-making process, and whatever we can do in a few minutes just to enlighten you, I think it will probably ease up some of the bitterness that this movie conjures.
And fans of practical effects have to understand also that in many cases, digital artists, and they are artists, and we don't have any qualms about saying that there's some fantastic digital artistry that goes on, but those artists are not particularly happy when 2-3 months before the release of a film they have to replace everything and then run the risk of that stuff not looking so great because they haven't had enough time to do it either. So anyway, to jump into some of the reasons and using The Thing 2011 as the reference point, Robbie Carell refers to the director as an idiot. I know that in the case of The Thing 2011, Matthias von Heininger is not at all an idiot. He is a very good director, and he's a guy who really loved Carpenter's version of The Thing and wanted his film to be in the vein of Carpenter's The Thing, and he worked very hard to make it so. And I think he said some things after the fact that indicate that he wasn't 100% happy with the film. But most directors working for studios, most younger directors or first-time directors, and a lot of times that's who is hired to do movies that have a lot of effects in them, because they become sort of this machine that has to be helmed, but it's really being helmed at the studio level, not so much at the directorial level. The director is in charge of minutia of getting performances out of actors and camera placement and all that kind of stuff. But broad stroke decisions, when you're dealing with a director who does not have a lot of clout, broad stroke decisions are made at the studio level. So a lot of times the studio, we have meetings all the time with directors who come in and they say, I don't want this thing to look like a digital thing. I want what you guys do. I grew up watching movies in the 80s and the 90s where things had a tactile quality, and I want a real animatronic thing. And then the next thing you know, a couple of weeks later, the studio has overridden that guy, and it's gone digital. It's not a cheaper way to go, but it is the studio mentality that it's a safer way to go. And it allows them more options to change things in post-production. And I'm sure you have stuff to fill in there as well.
Well, just following up on the director thing, there's I think in general there's among people that are fans of movies, there's a somewhat overly romanticized vision of what a director does on the set and the power that he commands, or the decision-making power that he commands. And I think short of somebody like Jim Cameron or Ridley Scott or a handful of other people, it really doesn't exist, because again, you remember that even named directors are there to do a job, and that job slot is to create the best looking, best storytelling film that can be done in the number of days and for the amount of money that has been given over to the budget to do it. So when you see decisions that are being made and wondering why director didn't choose another decision, and in many cases it's not just the director. We've been on plenty of movies where a director will request a certain aspect of a take, and then a producer or two will come over and confer with him, and then there will be a different version of a take. So it's not quite the lone artistic process that we all grew up thinking it was going to be, or hoping it was going to be. Not that there's not art in it, it's just not an all-pervasive director controls everything kind of thing on every set.
And from the studio perspective, there was a guy that used to be the president of production or vice president of production named John Swallow over at Universal. I don't think he was there during The Thing. I think he had retired by then. But he was a great guy, very knowledgeable about visual effects. And we would have these conversations with him and ask him, why are these things being replaced? He was a real gruff guy, and he said, guys, I just don't want to pay for the same damn thing twice. And in his experience, what happens is if a director goes the practical approach for a variety of reasons, at the end of the film and the beginning of post-production, the director decides, I want to change this or that aspect or start embellishing, then it's costing the studio more money. John Swallow cited Guillermo del Toro and said, that guy I trust. That guy makes a decision about practical effects. He hires good people, he gives them enough money, and they do a good job, and he doesn't tend to just totally replace things digitally. And so there was an example of trust. Another director, a younger director perhaps, Swallow didn't trust him. And that wasn't even necessarily a comment on the quality, because that's the first thing that people asked us. When the Thing came out, people said, well, did you guys screw up? What happened? And that's why we put the video up to show what we did, because we thought we did great work. But there are issues other than quality. Sometimes that enters into it. Like, for instance, we had one producer say to us, it's not going to be animatronics because we really want the dynamic of a video game. And that person isn't really saying, I want my effects to look like they came out of a video game, although they're not really. There's a fuzzy idea in there that I think that they have, that they look at video games, they look at that business, and they see that it makes more money than movies make. So they say, well, we want a piece of that. Just put that video game effect into my movie, and it will make it. The kids will love it, you know. And we think that we see that what the fans like, what they believe, there's a distinction between a video game look and a movie look. In a video game, you're okay with it because it's fun, it's immersive, and it's real time streaming, whatever the technology is. In a movie, you want your disbelief to be suspended, and you want to feel like the thing is really a photorealistic, believable, character or creature effect. But what that producer who said, I want this to look like a video game dynamic, is that what she was looking for was the quality of movement and all that sort of acrobatics that if you watch a Transformer movie, for instance, I mean, the characters are spinning in midair and they're big, long, slow-mo shots and all that. All that stuff gets very difficult with animatronics, because our techniques work best relying on cuts and the art of editing, which we're fans of, but a lot of new or studio execs don't necessarily agree with that. They want long, continuous, unbroken takes, and that sort of starts minimizing where animatronics and practical effects can contribute.
I think there's also an issue that affects the success of what we are able to do on a set, and that is the sort of, and this has happened a number of times, from a producer level, the sort of wanting to cover all bases. So we will, normally the process is we'll look at a script and we'll do a breakdown of what we think would be cool to put in the movie. And then if we get to the point where we're talking to a director and he's on board and changing, throwing ideas around, we then start applying numbers to what it's going to cost. And what has become the norm now is that there are some producers that will say, okay, I'm not going to spend $300,000 or $800,000 or $2 million on practical effects, because we've got to make sure that in the end we've got some money to, what if one of the practical effects don't look so good? What if something has to be changed or altered, or what if somebody further up the chain at the studio says we should do this and we should do that? We need to have money in the budget, so they will not pay us the entire amount of what we think it would cost to do this job. They will instead put that money at the end into a visual effects cleanup. So basically what they've done is they've sort of hobbled the build approach in favor of having some money set aside to fix what the hobbling is doing. So it's sort of this self-fulfilling prophecy. Mm-hmm. I will underfund the practical effects so that I have money to correct the practical effects that don't look so good because they were underfunded. Mm-hmm. So that's, and again, yeah, I know there's going to be emails coming in saying, "Oh, stupid producers," and I can't say I'm not the guy on the set who isn't saying the same thing just to Alec. But the truth is, it's all predicated out of movies are a huge risky business, and in an effort to be smart about it, you try to mitigate the risk, and not every decision to mitigate the risk is the right decision, but it's not done out of stupidity. It's done more out of trying to reach and scramble and shore up your investment so that you have a decent movie that comes out and everybody loves it. And
it's systemic, right? It is built into the movie making system, the big studio movie making system as we know it now, and people aren't really equipped, or nor do they have enough power to really fight the studio system. And part of that system is that, we've said this before, but in the old days, back in the 80s and even in the 90s, we would have 9 months, 6 months to build, to prep. Nowadays, customarily, we get 3 months, and that's sort of like an across-the-board studio mandate. All studios basically have cut their pre-production time down in an effort to save money. Movie making is so expensive now that what they do, the money costs money, right? To take that line of credit out, to borrow that money, costs money. So if you start a project at the 9-month mark before principal begins, you're paying a lot of interest on that money. So what they try to do is they reduce that amount of time in order to save money. So it's, in our opinion, penny wise, pound foolish, but that's the thinking. So as a result, we get less time to build stuff. We've gotten very good at building pretty spectacular stuff in a short amount of time, and that's because we've been in the game for so long, and we have a great crew of people who know how to do this stuff. It kind of eliminates some of the fun of experimentation and refinement. It kind of means that we're kind of like relying on a lot of the stuff we already know how to do. But like the experimentation that Bottin did on The Thing, I think they had, in total, they had a year and a half to do all those creature effects between the pre-production and shoot and then a post-production shoot. And that's why those results look so great. But the other aspect of that, of too little pre-production time, is not just we who are affected. It's also in terms of the screenplay development and prep for the shoot, in terms of effects gags or whatever, that you might not have time to rig something. So the default is just, we'll do it digitally, right? Instead of making a big thing fall down, the physical effects guy might say, you're not giving me enough time to make this work. So they go, okay, that goes digital, which is a greater expense than if you did it practically in most cases. So at the end of the movie, when you're putting it together and you're cutting your movie together, holes in the plot start showing, problems show. You do a test screening, people are scratching their head, they don't know where, and much of that is a function of not enough pre-production time. So that's the irony of cutting down the pre-production time to save money, is that you actually end up spending much more money in post-production to fix it digitally. And then you have all these digital artists who are working around the clock hours and compromising their family lives and doing work that is not necessarily 100% finished when the movie comes out. And that's what you have to remember when you guys look at digital effects and say they look like crap or they look like this or that or whatever, is that those guys were probably under duress, because we've seen plenty of digital effects that are really great and that look terrific when there's a plan set and when people aren't being run ragged or changing at the last minute. But that's an important thing to factor in too. And that is the system, right? That's the current system. So for us, rather than trying to break that system or trying to change that system for all of Hollywood, we've just decided to go outside the system with films that we're making right now. Tom's Fire City Interpreter of Signs and my Harbinger Down. They're both very low budget movies that even though we don't have a lot of money, we can control how that money is spent and bring the palette down. We're not trying to create entire huge Star Wars scale stories, and that, I think, is at least how we can control to some degree what kind of effects go into the movies and give the fans, you guys, what you want to see.
And hoping to grow out of those low budget movies, these two movies of ours, to grow and get into to bigger budgets, which allow richer stories and bigger effects packages, things that we can bring. The myth of a shortened pre-production schedule is so all pervasive that we could even sit down on a piece of paper and explain that it costs X dollars for us to create the visual effects for this movie, and what we have worked into that may be a little bit of R&D to come up with something new. But if somebody decides, if somebody looks at it and says, look, you guys are asking for 6 months to create this thing that's never been seen before, I'm only going to give you 4 months. And like Alec mentioned, initially it cuts down the prospect of doing anything new. We don't have the time to sit down. There's so many new materials out there, and the question may be, well, you have downtime between shows, but what we don't have between shows are an entire staff of people. We don't have the same artists that we want to work with. We have people that are freelance that go off to other shows and work other places. So it's really become a very small business, a very small piece of the business that generally does not sustain innovation the way it used to sustain it. So that's hopefully when we say that we're not looking to change the system, what we're hoping to do is grow something outside of that system, which is remarkably like the way the system was when we first got involved 30 years ago.
And the guys who have created their own system for it are the guys who have clout that can handle big budgets. Peter Jackson has done that really well, and with Richard Taylor and Weta. Those guys grew up filmmaking together, and their budgets increased, and they were able, in the Lord of the Rings movies and basically everything they've done, do it right, where they picked and chose the techniques that they wanted to use because they were believers in those practical effects techniques. And they had the power to do it. Guillermo del Toro is another guy who has the power, the clout, to say, I want real makeups, I want puppets, I want a giant, dead body of a creature in the street instead of a digital representation of that. He can do it because he has the power to do it. Most directors, as Tom said earlier, don't have that power. So, we're not sitting here saying we are going to be the next Peter Jackson, whatever. But we're no longer just waiting for studios to change their approach. We're being proactive about it, and going forth to create our own opportunities, which we became aware of through this channel, through Studio ADI's YouTube channel, and being in touch with you guys. So we thank you for that. It was a nice wake-up call.
It is. We do look at the comments, and it is fun to watch the comments, and it's a little fun to watch the arguments. But look, the big picture is we're hoping to be able to do what we love to do in a way that it seems people love to see it, and whether that means putting all of our hope into these films that we're doing. I think we're sort of taking a measured approach where we're still trying to find those jobs in the traditional film world of creating effects, creating practical effects, while we're trying to create our own projects and get things off the ground. And one thing that's been really important is this whole community that has grown out of our YouTube channel. And all of you people that have subscribed and people that have not yet subscribed, anybody that can join us, subscriptions are great. To be able to point to this and have studios look, and to know that there is that growing contingent of fans that are hungry for the kind of practical effects that feel better in a movie, even though those sentiments come out as stupid producers and stupid directors. You look past that and know that it comes from a feeling of dissatisfaction with what you're seeing in movies. And when you're dropping $10 or $12 or $15 now to see a movie, and you walk away and you're unsatisfied with it, and then the filmmakers and the producers aren't doing their job, because as much as we want to look down and say, oh, producers are only interested in their money, that's not always the case. There are producers who have a heart in wanting to create a great piece of entertainment that has something that's sustained, some kind of a thing that just goes on and leaves everybody with a satisfied feeling when they come out of the theater.
And that's a good point too about producers, and obviously a good producer wants to get quality on a budget, right? Nobody wants to pay more than they have to for the best possible look. And this is another element in this. Why do things get replaced digitally? And that's the tax incentives. California doesn't have a very good tax incentive program. But places like Louisiana do, and New Mexico I think still does, and Michigan. So there are states that using taxpayer money actually give rebates to studios to come to their state to shoot, and every dollar that you spend in that state, you get, for instance, if it's a 25% rebate, you get 25 cents back on every dollar. So if you spend $10 million, you'll get, $2.5 million back from the government of that state. So that's very hard for producers to turn down. So what happens is that they seek ways to spend as much money as possible in that state or that other country. I think Canada's, is that a 30% rebate in Canada? Something like that. But and there are places that have even higher rebates than that. So producers, being smart people, studios being smart, are going to go where they get that rebate. Those places, those tax incentive places, probably don't have good infrastructures for building animatronics or makeup. So they don't necessarily come to us here in Los Angeles to build those things, because they don't get the benefit of the tax incentive, right? So we've been called, LA has been called a bad spend, right? But if you look at, like, a movie like Prometheus was shot in London, and they have a very good makeup capability there, and that's why a lot of that stuff was makeup. But a lot of it that, in our opinion, could have been potentially animatronic was digital. But that stuff looked great, so it was good-looking digital. So you can't really complain that. It's just that ultimately it is more expensive to do digital. By our calculations, we sat down on a show with a visual effects producer from a studio and did all the calculations, comparative cost calculations from what it costs to create an animatronic character, including airfare for puppeteers, per diems, hotel, that stuff. And we were 3 to 6 times cheaper than the digital approach, and that was also borne out on AVP1, the visual effects producer on that, supervisor on that. We ran numbers with him, and that was the case. So people say, well, that's stupid. Why don't they just let you guys do more work? And it does get down a little bit into the penny wise, pound foolish. Just as big studios are bureaucracies, and they tend to make blanket statements, judgments, policy. They set policy and say, we're going to shoot this in a tax incentive country, so that's where we're going to shoot it, or state. We don't want to pay for this twice. We don't want to take the risk that it will need to get replaced, so it's going to be digital. So there's another thing that just sort of, funnels us down into that pro-digital choice.
But there are changes, right? Right now, the state of California is looking at changing their incentives. Oh, in fact, maybe we'll put up something in the description. We'll find a website or something that you subscribers and viewers that are actually Californians can reach out to your representatives and support the measures that are hopefully being put into place that will make California more competitive with out-of-state filming. That's one small thing that we could do. Beyond that, just stay involved. If there's anything new that's going to happen, we'll have it up here on our channel.
And Tom mentioned subscribing, and a way that's very helpful to us is if we're able to say, we have hundreds of thousands of subscribers on a YouTube channel that shows, that celebrates how all of this practical effects stuff is done. That shows the size of this community. We need analytics that actually point to how many people like yourself are interested in these techniques. We're not saying just fans of ADI, we're saying fans of practical effects. And that could be miniature effects as well as makeup and animatronics and suits and all that tactile, real stuff, handcrafted stuff that you guys love. So one way you can help is to subscribe to the channel and just get involved in some of the online communities, that celebrate practical effects. I'm trying to think if there's another factor. Oh yeah, there is another factor in why things go digital, and that happens in the pre-planning stage. Well, actually, it goes throughout. Very often, when we are sitting in meetings discussing in a round-robin fashion with department heads, with VFX mostly. VFX, director, producer, us, say, all in a room, and we're discussing, well, how should this effect be executed? Fairly often what comes up from the digital folks is, well, you know what, we're going to have to do a digital version of the creature for wide shots anyway. We're going to have to build the model, so we may as well do this shot too. And it's that sort of encroachment of like, oh yeah, well that makes sense, right? And then the next thing is, oh, well, and since you guys are doing so many shots, your budget is so high, you should probably just design the creature too. So then design work goes out of our hands as well. Our response to that is, well, look, you are, I think we're still looking at like $30,000 to $50,000 per shot. I think even like higher end, mid to high end, can go up as high as 80 grand a shot, digital, right? If you have a digital, and that's just an off the cuff, like I don't know how many seconds, 2 second, whatever. Just your average shot, ballpark, is going to cost you 30 to 50 grand. Well, very often we can spend just that amount, the amount of one shot can get you a character that can get you out of digital shots. That's what we usually pitch. Listen, we can give you something, we can build something so that you don't have to do those digital shots. You can shoot it on your set. And by the way, if you get 2 cameras on it, you get 2 shots, right? The more cameras, the more work we do in a day, the more that cost amortizes down to a minimal per shot, which is why we can do it 3 to 6 times cheaper than digital. But then the response quite often from digital artists is, well, yeah, but if we have to match something on set, that's going to be more costly. That's going to make our digital work more expensive if there's anything real on set, because we'll have to match those textures. And so what oftentimes happens is the practical effects person ends up just making a statue of the character that sits in as a lighting reference that gives them, a still image that they can look at, but not an actual shot they have to match to. So this is sort of the constant push-pull, and very often there aren't people passionate enough about the actual look of things to say, no, there is a difference between a digital character and a practical character, and I want the look of the practical character. That's what very often gets overridden at the studio level, because they don't know that you guys care so much. They don't know that you can make that distinction. They don't know that you make a distinction between a video game imagery, which is fine for a video game, but plunk it into a film and it's objectionable because it doesn't look like something that belongs in real life. So they don't realize that you guys are as astute as you are, and are as discerning as you actually are. So if we have things to point to, and a large enough community that has a large enough voice, then at that point I think they will listen. But until then, we're going to be doing our own thing and trying to get our own projects off the ground that give you what you want. And as Tom said, we're going to try to get those budgets to go up so that we can put more on screen, basically.
Can you say that last thing again?
More on screen.
No, the whole thing about the costs of
costs 3 to 6 times.
But just the whole thing, real quick.
Okay,
He did say more on more on screen.
More on screen. That's what we call it. We used to call it the boob tube. Now it's this is TV is actually.
We'll ask Mike to cut this part.
No,
you probably won't see this part.
Have you watched Game of Thrones, Tom?
What? No, I haven't.
It's really good.
I'm waiting. No, I haven't seen it.
And it is.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, my kids love it. But
do you love it?
The reason, not so much. But the reason that I bring it up is that that is an example of a bunch of people fleeing movies to get to something. There's plenty of digital stuff in
That's
there.
That's the story in Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
That people are fleeing movie making?
Yes. So it shows that people have. You can tell Tom's losing interest in this whole video now. He's just starting to.
I'm fully expecting you're not even watching this part because I'm thinking it's already been cut. But
no,
maybe
we have
wrong.
more to say. Yeah.
Maybe it's wrong.
Yeah, dig deep, Tom, because they
do a
want to
part
hear
two.
more.
We'll do a part
No,
two.
they want to hear more. There's one other aspect to this, and that is that we love everyone, and we don't want to see fighting. We don't want to see you. I'm just doing this to bug Tom.
I'm just looking for the off button.
No, see, this camera, by the way, came from the 80s. So
there's no off
there's
button.
No off button.
We just keep talking till the videotape runs out.
The button wore off many years ago. Anyway, so what's the last pitch then? Tom's decided this is over. So hopefully you've gotten enough information from us. If not, just give us questions, and we'll be happy to answer them. Please subscribe, as we've been pitching over and over relentlessly, and check out some of our other YouTube videos on Studio ADI's channel.
They're shorter.
They are, but people love these long.
Do you look into the camera, or do you watch yourself?
My
in the
eyes are
monitor?
so squinty that it doesn't. No one can tell where I look, and I'm not about to say. I'm not about to say. Anyway,
I like watching us.
so closing statement, Tom. It's all yours.
Watching, look, little Tom pushing giant Alec in the ear. No, you've said it all. I've stopped.
I didn't say it all. You
think
you
we-
said things too.
No, I know, but I'm saying that,
Huh?
that we've said what needs to be said.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Please stay tuned for more stuff, and hopefully you've enjoyed.
Oh, do you want to show
This.
people your abs like you did on
On
Facebook?
yeah, there was a picture of me. I just got out of the shower, and someone I don't.
Because you didn't look wet.
What? Where do they find us? Oh yes, Tom. You have a Twitter account, don't you?
Yes, I do. It's Tom_Woodruff Jr. at twitter.com. I'm also Instagramming now.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of myself.
Is that the same address
I
on
don't
Instagram?
know. I just started.
Yes.
Is it?
It is.
Oh, it is.
My Twitter account is Alec_Gillis_. That's the store below where I live. I live above a store. _Gillis, and Instagram is the same, Alec_Gillis. And then we have a Facebook
We have,
Facebook page.
we're on the Facebook. We are on the Facebook with Studio ADI, correct?
Fires.
Fire City. Isn't it called Fire City Interpreter Signs?
They can find you in Fire City.
You'll find me in Fire City. Harbinger Down.
Harbinger Down has a Facebook page.
I have a Tom Woodruff Jr. page.
HarbingerDown.com is our website for that movie, and I'm sure there's a website for Fire City.
Oh, we'll do updates. Yes, there is. There is I'll have to print that in. I think it's just.
Post it in the description.
We'll post it in the description.
Right.
Except I'm still assuming that this has all been cut.
No, this is
I
very
don't know.
important stuff.
Who knows?
Okay, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Studio ADI.
Now we're done.